what can we do to help someone who has a liberal theology that doesn't believe in the authority of Scripture?
Well, so to ask the question, you always got to ask good questions. Like, why? So if someone comes with an issue, I want to ask, well, and you probably know Greg Koukl's work?
Yes.
Okay, so Greg Koukl's done some good friend of mine. He wrote a book called Tactics. I feel like I should get a commission on every one of those ones he sells, because I think I sell more books than Greg does for him. But his book Tactics is helpful because it talks about asking 3 important questions. What do you mean by that? Why do you think that's true? And have you ever considered this alternative? That's usually your third, some form of the third question. So the first question I'm going to ask is, well, why would you think this is not reliable to begin with? Like, why would you think that this, I'm with you. I never thought it was reliable. Now, we didn't talk about this tonight, but how I tested the Scripture was under the 4 criteria we use with eyewitnesses in trial. Were you really there to see what you said you saw? Can you be corroborated in some way? Have you changed your story over time? And do you have some bias or motive that would cause you to lie to me? That's the criteria that we offer jurors to examine when we're talking about eyewitness testimony. So I simply said, well, if I apply this to the Gospels, could they pass? Now, we didn't talk about that tonight, but that's really how, there's a bunch of stuff I had to jump through in order to become a Christian. And the first thing I had to know is, why would I trust that the Scriptures are telling me anything true about Jesus? Look, let's put it this way. Go with me on a thought experiment. If the Gospels simply reported Jesus as an ancient sage who preached, that's it. No miracle working, no born of a virgin, didn't die on a cross and resurrected, none of the miracle stuff was in there. If all it was that he was a preacher in the first century, he would be the most well-documented historical preacher in the history of preachers. There wouldn't be a single person who would doubt the historicity of Jesus. But you add the miracles, and now everyone's like, can't trust that stuff. That speaks to the presuppositional bias of naturalism, that we are biased against the miracles. Everything else, we're like, hey, that's solid. Put the miracle in, no, can't trust any of it. So that really is more about our bias than it is anything else. But I would say to all of you, I didn't have anyone I could read when I became a Christian. I didn't know what apologetics was. So I didn't know who even the authors would be. So I started digging through church history, church fathers, early first century stuff, the stuff I've been writing about in the next book. And I would suggest to you is, don't trust me for this. Do not trust me, and do not trust Craig for it. We can guide you. We can show you what we did. That's what we try to do. We want to equip you, the saints, for the work of ministry. But to be equipped, you have to be knowledgeable. And so what we want to point you in the right direction. And then all that time you've been spending wondering whether or not, and reading about whether or not Dak Prescott's going to get back in the saddle, spend that studying Scripture. Because all this is about us reprioritizing the stuff that we used to think was important. And we waste so much. If you look at my podcasts, more than half are sports. That's a complete, my wife will say, why are you doing that? She teases me, you should be on that sports show as making a commentary. That's not a compliment. She's saying, you've wasted that much headspace on sports. So it's about us kind of prioritizing what's important to us. But if you do that, you'll come out the same way I think you will come out the same way I did.